Morning, students. In last class, we discussed about the temporomandibular joint to chew the food and enjoy the taste of the food. And today, we are going to discuss another important topic, that is to enjoy by seeing the colors of life. Okay, natural colors, artificial colors, whatever it may be, by seeing the colors. Most of the people, they enjoy by seeing the colors. And for that purpose, we need a special sensory organ. That is nothing but the eye. There is nothing but the eye. Today, we are going to discuss about the eyeball. What are the components of the eyeball? Do you see here? These are all the colorful, natural things. They are giving enjoyment. They are making us enjoy. Okay, see, these are all the natural beauties. And already you know, there is in our Vedas, Sarvendriyanam Nayanam Pradhanam. Among all the special sensory organs, the eyes are the most important, because if you want to see, enjoy, if you want to appreciate, you must see. Then only it is full. You can appreciate anything fully by seeing. Okay, that is why the eyes are very, very important. Today we are going to discuss about the eyeball. What is eyeball? Where it is located? What are the different parts of the eyeball? And to perform different functions of the eyeball, how it is specially designed, and what are the different components which are taking part in performing the functions of the eyeball. And at the same time, what are the structures which are protecting the eyeball? All these things, and what are the blood vessels which are nourishing the structures of the eyeball? All these things we are going to discuss today's class. Okay. First, you see what is the location of the eyeball. Already you know, that is already discussed in previous classes about the orbit. That is the orbit. It is in the anterior part of norma frontalis, and especially the anterior third of the orbit. You see, this total is the orbit. From here to here, this total is the orbit, and especially the anterior third, and this is the posterior two-thirds. Anterior 1/3 of the orbit. It is providing accommodation to the eyeball. It is providing accommodation to the eyeball. And this is the retro bulbar fad of pad. This is the behind the eyeball. There is a space. It is filled with the fat, and the orbit also provides accommodation to the extraocular muscles. Already madam discussed, that is extraocular muscles. These are all there are 6 muscles plus 1, 7. Actually, there are 7 muscles. That is, they are all responsible for the movement of the eyeball. That is 6 muscles. And another muscle, that is the levator labiae superioris. That is it is the muscle. It is providing movement to the upper eyelid. Okay, all these 6 muscles, they are also accommodated in the orbit. Along with this eyeball, from the eyeball there is an extension backwards, that is nothing but the optic nerve. Optic nerve. This is the nerve of vision. Nerve of vision. It is also accommodated within the orbit. Okay, these are all the different parts of the eyeball, and we see in detail about each part of the eyeball and what is its function and what is its clinical importance. As a medical people, we are supposed to know why we are studying all these structures. Clinically, what is the importance of each part of the eyeball? In which way it is taking part in the functioning of the eyeball? Okay, all these things we are going to discuss. Okay, next. Eyeball. The eyeball is the organ of sight. It is a spherical in shape, or it is also called globe. Globe of the eyeball or globe of the eye. and the diameter of the eye is 2.5 centimeters approximately. That is sometimes some books may give that is 2.4 or 24 centimeters, 24 millimeters. 24 millimeters, that is a normal shape. Normal size of the eyeball is 24 or 25 millimeters or 2.5 centimeters approximately. But depending upon the individual, there may be some variations. And at the same time, in different diseased persons, that is, suppose if you see near vision, there is a problem with the near vision, or sometimes there may be a problem with the distant vision. In those individuals, there is a variation in the size of the eyeball. That is, normal is 24 or 25 millimeters, and it may vary from 20 millimeters minimum and maximum is 29 millimeters. It may be variable in between the 20 and 29. The average is 2.5 centimeters or 24 or 25 millimeters. That is the normal diameter of the eyeball. Okay. Next, this diameter of the eyeball, it is very, very important because the shape of the eyeball also takes part in the errors of the vision. Okay, that is why the production of the errors of the vision is due to change in the shape of the eyeball. Because of this reason, the diameter or the measurement of the eyeball is also very, very important clinically also. Okay, and it is made up of 3 concentric codes or tunics. Outside the eyeball, there are 3 concentric codes or tunics. Okay, you see here, this is the section of the eyeball. Okay. And here these are the codes or tunics. Codes or tunics from outside inwards. And this is the external, this is the middle, and this is the inner. These are the 3 tunics or codes. Outer code, middle code, and inner code. And out of the 3 codes we see. Outer code, it is fibrous code because it protects the eyeball. It provides the protection to the eyeball. At the same time, it also maintains the shape of the eyeball. And because of this reason, it is made up of fibrous tissue. Fibrous tissue, that is, it comprises the sclera and cornea. Sclera and cornea, these are the 2 parts of the outer coat. Okay, this is the very, very important to maintain the shape of the eyeball. At the same time, it also helpful for the support of the eyeball or protects the underlying structures of the eye. Okay, next coming to the middle, where it is a vascular cord because it is rich in blood vessels, that is nerves, arteries, blood veins. They are all rich in this middle layer. That is, this is also called uveal tract. This is also called uveal tract. From behind forwards, the different parts are there. This middle cord, you see here, this is the outer cord. Okay, and up to here, from this is called optic disc. This area is called optic disc. From here up to this level, and this is called sclera. This part is called sclera, and this part, anterior part, is called cornea. Here, if you divide the total eyeball into 6 parts, the anterior 1/6, that means only this part, anterior 1/6 of the eyeball is formed by cornea, and the remaining 5/6 of the eyeball, it is made up of sclera. Okay, these are the 2 parts of the outer coat of the eyeball. Okay, this is the cornea and this is the sclera. These are the outer part of the outer coat of the eyeball. Next, coming to the middle or vascular coat. Middle coat or vascular, it is also called uveal tract. From behind forwards, it comprises choroid and ciliary body, iris. These are the 3 parts. It is in the middle coat, that is choroid, ciliary body, and iris. And ciliary body and iris, they also contain the intrinsic muscles of the eye. Already we discussed about madam discussed about the extrinsic muscles, that is the muscles which are taking part in the formation of, in the production of position of the eyeball. But here the intrinsic muscles, they are helpful for the functioning of the eye by accommodating the lens, and that is they are called accommodatory muscles or muscles of accommodation. Okay, we discuss in detail about the what are the intrinsic muscles, how they are helpful for the vision, all these things. Okay, so the middle coat, it is three parts, that is choroid, ciliary body and iris. Choroid, ciliary body and iris. Okay, you see middle coat, that is this is the, you see here, this is the middle coat. Okay, this one dotted one is the middle coat, and here up to here, up to this level, this part is called choroid. This part is called, is a pigmented vascular layer. Pigmented vascular layer from here. That is that means the posterior 5/6, the posterior 5/6 of the eyeball in the middle coat, it is made up of choroid. It is made up of choroid. Next, the continuation of the choroid in the anterior part, it is two parts. That is this part is called ciliary body, and this part is called iris. This part is called, this part finger-like part is called, just like the finger-like part is called iris, and this part is called ciliary body. You see here, this is the finger is nothing but the iris, and this part is ciliary body, and it here, from here up to here, this is the ciliary body, from here to here, and then it continues as the choroid. Okay, these are all the three parts that are present in the middle coat. Next, coming to the inner coat or nervous coat, this is all very, very important. This is the actual site for the vision. Okay, this is the actual site for the vision. That is nothing but the retina. The inner coat is the nervous coat. It is the site for the reception of the, that is light rays, or and it is the area, exactly this is the area to produce the image, Okay, these are the three coats. Apart from these three coats in the wall of the, that is eyeball, there are two other important structures. That is, one is the aqueous humor and another one is the vitreous humor. Aqueous humor and vitreous humor. Okay, you see here, and this part, the anterior part of the anterior 1/5 of the eyeball, it is filled with the aqueous humor, and the posterior 5/6 it is filled with the vitreous body. And here the cornea, aqueous humor, lens, vitreous body, these are comes under the category of refractive body structures. Refractive structures we discuss. What are the refractory structures? All these things. Okay, so these are all the different parts of the eyeball. Outer coat is the sclera, cornea. The middle coat is choroid, ciliary body, iris, along with the intrinsic muscles of the eye. And inner coat is nervous coat. It is made up of retina. And within these boundaries, there is it is filled. The gap is filled with the aqueous humor in the anterior part and vitreous body in the posterior part. Okay, these are all the overall outline. What are the things we are going to discuss? First, you see here, this is the total eyeball. Here, this is called anterior pole, and this is the called posterior pole. If you draw here the anterior pole, that is the center of the cornea, it forms the anterior pole, and center of the sclera forms the posterior pole. If you draw a line from the imaginary line from the center of the anterior pole to the posterior pole, and this axis is called visual axis. This axis is called visual axis, and there is another axis. If you draw a line from the anterior pole to the optic, this exactly center of the posterior pole of the eyeball, that is called optic axis. That optic axis and visual axis. These are the two axes. They are present in the eye. And another one is here. You see, if you draw a line, encircle the eyeball, total eyeball, that is called equator. That is or at the same time, this is a midpoint of the anterior pole and posterior. This is the posterior pole, this is the anterior pole. And between the midpoint of this one, here approximately at this area, if you draw a line like this, that is called equator. That is called equator, just like our globe, equator. And another point, there is meridian. What is meridian? That is, if you draw a line vertically, horizontally, or obliquely, it cuts the meridian. It cuts the meridian with the right angles. With the right angles, that axis is called meridian. That axis is called meridian. So the meridian may be vertical, horizontal, or oblique. Okay, these are all the different planes you must keep in mind. Okay. Next, these are all the different chambers. Okay, you see, this is the, here again the eyeball, it is divided into two parts. That is the anterior segment and posterior segment. This is the, and the green color one is the anterior segment, and this yellow one is the posterior segment. In between these two segments, there is a lens. The blue color one is the lens. The lens divides the eyeball into two segments, that is the posterior segment and anterior segment. And again, the anterior segment, again it is divided into two parts, that is anterior chamber and posterior chamber. Anterior chamber and posterior chamber. In front of the iris, this is iris. Okay, this is the cornea. And here this is the anterior chamber. Anterior chamber bounded anteriorly by the posterior surface of the cornea and posteriorly by the anterior surface of the iris. And this is the posterior chamber, and this posterior chamber boundaries, that is anteriorly it is bounded by the posterior surface of the iris, and posteriorly it is bounded by the anterior surface of the lens. Okay, these are the two chambers, and that is the two chambers, that is anterior and posterior chambers. They are nothing but the subdivisions of the anterior segment of the eyeball. Anterior segment of the eyeball, it is divided into two parts with the help of the iris diaphragm. It is diaphragm. It is like a, or you see the trunk of the body. It is divided into two parts with the help of the thoracoabdominal diaphragm. That is, upper one is the thorax, lower one is the abdomen. Just like this, here also, it is a division of the anterior segment of the eyeball. And this posterior segment of the eyeball, it is filled with the vitreous body, and anterior segment, it is filled with the aqueous humor. These are the two most important structures. They are responsible for the maintenance of the shape of the eyeball, and they maintain the integrity of the eyeball. Okay, these are all the subdivisions of the, this is the cornea, this is the aqueous humor, this is the iris diaphragm, this is the lens, vitreous body, and these are all the different codes. This is the external code or outer code, middle code, and inner code. Okay, these are all the overall different parts of the eyeball. You see here, it also here the it is eyeball, it is covered by, outside the sclera, it is covered by a membrane that is called conjunctival membrane or conjunctiva. Okay, but after piercing the conjunctiva, the extraocular muscles, they reach into the subconjunctival space. Subconjunctival space. After that, they gets inserted to the sclera. It gets inserted to the sclera at the, just at the level of the, just anterior to the equator. Just anterior to the equator. Okay. Next, you see in detail about the each part of the eyeball. First, you take about the outer codes, that is sclera. It is composed of dense fibrous tissue, film, and maintains the shape of the eyeball. That is the most important function. Because of this function, it is made up of dense fibrous tissue. Dense fibrous tissue. It is opaque and forms the posterior 5/6 of the eyeball. Posterior 5/6 of the eyeball, it is covered by sclera. Lamina, here this sclera, it is having different parts. Okay, you see. Lamina cribrosa, it is a sieve-like appearance of the entrance of the optic nerve. Outer surface is white and smooth. Here we see what is the lamina cribrosa. You see here. Here this is the eyeball, and this is the, this white one is the sclera, and here at this the posterior pole, not exactly at the posterior pole, just posteromedial. It's a pole superomedial to the posterior pole. There is a one area, a special area that is called lamina cribrosa. Why it is called lamina cribrosa? Because the optic nerve from the retina, there is a, that is the starting point of the optic nerve, that is from the rods and cones. The optic nerve fibers, they start and they pierce the sclera. They pierce the sclera and it makes the sclera like a sieve, jallada. Okay, like a sieve. That is why it is called, it is like a lamina cribrosa. Lamina cribrosa. Okay, lamina cribrosa. And this is the site of entry of the or exit of the optic nerve and entry of the central artery of retina and exit of the central retina vein of retina. Central vein of retina. Okay, okay. This is the lamina cribrosa. Next, covered by Tenon's capsule. Here already I told you it is accommodated in the posterior anterior 1/3 of the orbit. And here the eyeball, it is separated from the wall of the orbit by a capsule. By a capsule. Now capsule is there. Orbit, it is a cavity like this. Orbit is like a cavity like this. And between this, the anterior 1/3 is separated from this cavity. And the posterior part, there is a fat. And in front of this fat, there is one capsule. There is one capsule like this. There is one capsule. And within this, there is a eyeball. Okay, this is this capsule is called Tenon's capsule. Tenon's capsule or orbital fascia. Orbital fascia. Orbital fascia or Tenon's capsule. And here, this Tenon's capsule, it separates the eyeball from the orbit, remaining structures of the orbit. And what is the importance of this Tenon's capsule or orbit is, orbital fascia is, whenever there is a damage to the eyeball due to accidents or some reasons. Suppose if you want to remove the eyeball and you have to fix the artificial eyeball, at that time, the Tenon's capsule, it acts like, that is called prosthesis. Artificial eyeball is called prosthesis. So if you want to fix the prosthesis in the for the cosmetic purposes, this Tenon's capsule, it acts like a base. It acts like a base to fix the prosthesis or artificial eye. That is the importance of this Tenon's capsule or orbital fascia. Orbital fascia. Next, that is anterior part. That is in the posterior part. The anterior part, it is covered by anterior part of the eyeball. It is covered by, you see, this is the up to here. There is a Tenon's capsule. It is covering, and the remaining parts, what you are seeing in your eye, this part, the remaining part, it is covered by a layer that is called conjunctiva. That is called conjunctiva. And inner surface is brown, grooved for ciliary nerves and blood vessels. That is inner surface of the sclera. It is separated from the choroid by perichoroidal space, contains delicate cellular tissue. That is suprachoroidal lamina or lamina fusca of the sclera. Lamina fusca of the sclera or suprachoroidal lamina. That is the space between the choroid, and that is the middle layer, and the sclera. The space between the sclera and choroid, we call it as suprachoroidal lamina or lamina fusca of the sclera. Sclera is a continuous anteriorly with the cornea at the sclerocorneal junction or limbus. Sclerocorneal junction. Okay. Up to here, this is the sclera, and from here, this is the cornea. At this junction, that junction point of the sclera and cornea, we call it as limbus or sclerocorneal junction. Sclerocorneal junction or limbus. The sclerocorneal junction is very important. We see deep to the limbus contains circular canal, that is sinus venosus sclerae or canal of Schem. Sinus venosus sclerae or canal of Schem. Here you see, here this is the site. This is the sinus venosus. Sinus. This is the junction point between the, from here. This is the sclera. This side sclera. This side cornea. Okay, this is the junction point. At this there is a venous sinus, and this is called sinus venosus sclerae. Sinus venosus sclerae. The name itself is self-explanatory. Okay, this is the canal of Schell. This is also called canal of Schell. This canal of Schell, clinically it is very, very important. We discuss what is its importance later. Through this sinus, the aqueous humor drains into ciliary veins. Here, already you know the anterior chamber of the anterior segment of the eye, it is filled with the aqueous humor. Aqueous humor, it is produced into the posterior segment of the posterior chamber of the anterior segment, and anterior segment of anterior chamber of the anterior segment, it absorbs. Okay. And that here the absorption is with the help of the sinus venosus sclerae, just like our dural venous sinuses, just like our dural venous sinuses. Okay, that is the sclera. Next, coming to the what are the parts? That is, sclera is pierced by different structures. Here, this is because it is the outermost structure. If any structure, if it wants to enter into the eyeball and it leaves the eyeball or it enters into the eyeball, it must supposed to pierce the sclera. Okay, here what are the structures that are piercing the sclera? First and foremost is the optic nerve. It leaves the eyeball by piercing the posterior pole of the eye. That is just infromedial to the posterior pole of the optic, that is eyeball. Posterior pole of the eyeball, that is nothing but the optic nerve. Okay. You see here, this is the area for the piercing of the optic nerve. Okay, next another structures, that is ciliary nerves and vessels. Ciliary nerves and vessels, that is there are the short ciliary vessels and the short ciliary nerves. Okay, and these structures, they also pierce the sclera. They also pierce the sclera and they enter into the eyeball. They leave the eyeball. And anterior ciliary arteries, that is arteries of the muscles, that is the muscles of the external, that is the extraocular muscles. They are supplied by the ciliary arteries. They are also piercing the limb. There is a sclera at the level of the limbus. At the level of the limbus is nothing but the junction point of the sclera and cornea. Okay, at this level, the anterior ciliary arteries, they pierce the sclera and they pass into the, that is the choroid and other parts of the eyeball. And four venae verticose, there is a choroid veins pass out through the sclera just behind the equator. Here, these are the veins that drain this aqueous humor. They drain the aqueous humor into the general circulation. That is through these four venae verticose. Venae verticose are choroid veins. They are called choroid veins or venae verticose. They also pierce the eyeball. Okay, we see in detail after while discussing about the individual parts of the eye. And sclera is avascular. It is avascular, but the episcleral space, that is that between the conjunctiva and the sclera, is vascular. Above the sclera, there is a blood vessels, but the sclera itself is avascular. It receives its nutrition by the process of diffusion. Here, over the sclera, there is a conjunctiva. If there is an inflammation of the conjunctiva, that is called conjunctivitis. It is called conjunctivitis. This is the picture of the conjunctivitis. It may be due to viral or bacterial or allergic, or there are so many reasons for the conjunctivitis. Next, coming to the another important part, that is the cornea, that is the anterior 1/6 of the eyeball. Anterior 1/6 of the eyeball. Here you see, this is the cornea. This is the cornea, that is the anterior 1/6, and the remaining is the posterior 5/6. This anterior 1/6 of the eyeball, it is formed by cornea. It is transparent, replaces sclera over the anterior 1/6 of the eyeball. Okay, the posterior 5/6 is covered by sclera, and the anterior 1/6 is the cornea. More convex, curvature diminishes with age. The curvature of the convex, that is cornea, is more when compared with the sclera. It is more convex than the sclera, and the curvature of this cornea, it diminishes with the age. As the age advances, there is a decrease in the curvature of the cornea. It is separated from the iris by anterior chamber. Already we have seen. And the cornea is avascular. It is also avascular and nourished by lymph circulates in corneal spaces, tears, aqueous humor. Tears, aqueous humor. These are all the contents. They are nourishing the cornea because it is a avascular. And supplied by ophthalmic nerve branches, short ciliary nerves. And here there is no blood vessels in the cornea, and because this is very, very, very important. Because of this reason, it is transparent. It is a transparent, and it acts like a refractive media. It acts like a refractive media. That is a cornea. The refractive media power, that is the total. The refractive power of the eye is 58 diopters. 58 diopters. Out of these 58 diopters, 43 diopters, that is two-thirds of the eye power, it is with the help of the cornea. Okay, the help of the cornea. Because of this reason, it is highly transparent. There is no blood vessels because the absence of the blood vessels is very, very important for the transparency. And at the same time, it is made up of here, suppose the convexity of the cornea must be uniform. If there is any disturbance in the convexity, that is from lateral to anteroposterior or from lateral, if there is a disturbance of the convexity of the cornea, we call it as astigmatism. We call it as astigmatism. Okay, any meridian. In any meridian, there is a disturbance in the convexity or differences in the convexity of the cornea. We call it as astigmatism. Okay. Next, what are the different layers which are forming the cornea? Okay. Outermost layer is the corneal epithelium. It is made up of stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinized, and because it is exposing to the external environment and wear and tear, to protect this, there is a special arrangement that is in the form of stratified squamous epithelium. And next, below this, there is another layer, that is the Bowman's membrane, that is anterior elastic lamina. It is a cellular layer. And substantia propria, dense collagen fibers and chondroitin sulfase and keratin sulfase are present in this substantia propria. And Descemet's membrane, that is the posterior elastic lamina, and the lining epithelium. This is the simple epithelium, cuboid squamous epithelium. Okay, you see here, this is the structure of the microscopic structure of the cornea. Okay, these are all the different layers. First is, this is the epithelium, corneal epithelium, that is simple squamous epithelium. The next layer is the Bowman's membrane. This is the Bowman's membrane, acellular layer. And next, this is the very, very important layer, that is substantia propria. Substantia propria, it is made up of fibers, elastic fibers, and they are uniformly arranged. They are evenly arranged. Because of this reason only, the cornea is transparent. Cornea is transparent. And after that, this is the inner Descemet's membrane or inner limiting membrane. And finally, there is a endothelium. These are the different layers of the cornea. Next, you see, suppose what is the importance of the cornea? It is a very important structure for the refractive power. At the same time, it also allows the light rays pass through the cornea. Suppose if you see in some clinical conditions, because of some spilling of the acid, strong acid, strong alkalis, or during bomb blasts, or during in Diwali season, during accidentally there is a breaking of fire. In those occasions, or nowadays, some people they are attacking with the acids. That is acid pouring acid over the individual. In those occasions, there are chances for the scarring of the cornea. Scarring of the cornea, and it affects the vision of the individual. Affects the vision of the individual, and that is called corneal opacity. Corneal opacity. This is the eye, the corneal opacity, and because already you know that is the cornea. It is a avascular. Cornea is a avascular. Because of this reason, you may go for the corneal grafting. Corneal grafting. You may collect the cornea from the, that is brain dead individual or donors, and you can transplant. Okay, transplant the cornea, and the individuals who are suffering with the corneal opacities due to some individuals it is due maybe due to congenital abnormality, or on most of the occasions it is due to accidents. It is due to accidents. In this time, you go for the corneal transplantation, because the rejection rate is very, very less. 99.99% there is no rejection to the cornea, because it is a avascular structure. Okay, that is about the cornea. Next, coming to the another middle layer. That is the next layer is the, already we discussed about the sclera and cornea. These are the two structures. They are taking part in the formation of the outer coat of the eyeball. Next, coming to the middle coat. Middle coat, it is made up of choroid, ciliary body, iris. Three structures. We discuss one by one. Okay. First, we see about the choroid. This is the thin pigment layer separates posterior part of sclera from the retina. That means the posterior 5/6 of the eyeball, there are three layers. That is outermost is the sclera and innermost is the retina. In between these two, there is a vascular layer, that is nothing but the choroid. It separates the sclera from retina. Sclera from retina. Here, these are all the blood vessels. It is highly vascular. Highly vascular. Here you see, okay, this is the sclera and this is the retina. In between these two, this is the middle layer. Outside sclera, inside retina. Okay, and this is the area, it is supplying the two layers. That is next, the choroid anteriorly ends at ora serrata as ciliary body. Ora serrata. What is ora serrata? We see. We will discussing over the retina. And posteriorly perforated by optic nerve. Posteriorly, it is perforated by optic nerve at the, there is optic disc, and suprachoroidal lamina separates the sclera. Suprachoroidal lamina separates the sclera. That is the suprachoroidal lamina. It is nothing but the space between the sclera and the choroid. Suprachoroidal lamina. And inner surface is firmly attached to the retina. These are all the relations of the choroid. And structure of the choroid, that is suprachoroidal lamina, that is the vascular layer, and also another layer, that is vascular lamina below that, and choroidal capillary lamina and inner basal lamina. These are the four layers which are present in the choroid, structure of the choroid. You see here, these are all the blood arteries. They are piercing the sclera and they are entering into the suprachoroid lamina, choroid lamina. And these are the veins. They are all converging and they are forming the veins. They are forming the choroidal veins. Together they are forming the ciliary veins. That is short and long ciliary veins. And here there are short ciliary arteries and long ciliary arteries. Short ciliary and long ciliary arteries. They are all forming the network in the suprachoroidal lamina. At the same time, the blood nerves which are supplying to the eye also, they are also forming the plexus. Okay, that is the choroid. This is the, just like suppose if you take the grape, dark grape. If you take the dark grape, it is just like a dark skin of the dark grape. After, if you open the skin of the, that is black grape, inside that there is a jelly-like material. That is nothing but the retina and vitreous and aqueous humors. Vitreous body and aqueous humors. And outside this, there is the skin is nothing but the choroid. It is highly vascular. And here, what is the function of the choroid is it nourishes all the layers, especially it gives blood supply, nourishment to the sclera. At the same time, the outer 3 or 4 layers of the retina. Outer 3 or 4 layers of the retina, that also receives its nutrition through the choroid plexus of arteries. Choroid plexus of arteries. That is the most important function. At the same time, it is also filled with the pigment cells. And it absorbs the pigment. That is a light rays. It absorbs the light rays. These are the functions of the choroid. Next, coming to the ciliary body. The anterior extension of the choroid, that is nothing but the ciliary body. You see here, this is the, up to here, this is the choroid. And after that, it continues as the ciliary body. This part is called ciliary body. Here, this one. This is called ciliary. This total. Total is the ciliary body. Up to this level, this is called ora serrata. Ora serrata, it is nothing but the anterior extremity of the nervous part of the retina. Nervous retina, it is having two parts. That is, one is nervous part and non-nervous part. The posterior part is nervous part and anterior part is non-nervous part. The anterior extremity of the nervous part of the retina, we call it as ora serrata. Up to this level, this part is posterior to this one, we call it, and the middle layer is called choroid, and anterior to this one, this part, this total part is called ciliary body. Ciliary body. The ciliary body, again, it is composed of muscles, and it also contains the thickened part of the uveal tract. Uveal tract comprises three parts. That is, posterior one is the choroid, next middle one is the ciliary body, and anterior one is the iris. Okay, out of this, the thickest part of this middle one, that is the uveal, that is our middle layer or uveal tract, that is the ciliary body. It lies in the posterior to the limbus. That is the limbus. It is nothing but the junction between the sclera and cornea. Junction between the sclera and cornea, and it lies posterior to the limbus and anterior to the choroid. In between the limbus and the choroid, there is a dilated area of the middle zone. We call it as ciliary body. It continues anteriorly with the iris, posteriorly with the choroid. It suspends the lens, helps in accommodation of vision. Here, you see, this is the ciliary body total from here to here. This total is the ciliary body, and this ciliary body, it is divided into two parts. That is anterior broad area and posterior narrow area. Broad area. In general, if you see overall, it is like a triangle. It's like a triangular area. The ciliary body is like a triangular area, and this is the area forming the base, and this is the part it is connected with the choroid. It forms the apex. Okay, and here it is composed of many important structures. That is especially the muscles. The muscles which are present in the ciliary body. There are three types of muscles are present in the ciliary. These are all the smooth muscles. There are three types of muscle fibers, not muscles, muscle fibers. There are three types of muscle fibers. That is, number one is the circular fibers, and number two is the radial fibers, radiating fibers, and next is the meridional fibers. Meridional fibers. Meridional fibers, radiating fibers, circular fibers. There are three types of muscle fibers that are present in the ciliary body. Ciliary body. These muscle fibers are very, very important to maintain or to alter the shape of the lens depending upon the need. Okay, that is called accommodation. Accommodation reflex. Accommodation reflex. The ciliary body muscles that are taking part in the accommodation are if they stretch, because this part of the ciliary body, it is attached to the suspensory ligament of the lens. Suspensory ligament of the lens, and medially the suspensory ligament of the lens, it is attached to the boundary of the lens. You see here, this is the up to here, this is the choroid, and from here to here, this is the ciliary body. Okay, and here this is the base apex of the ciliary body, and this is the base of the ciliary body. The base, it is providing attachment to the, and the continuation is nothing but the diaphragm, and it also provides attachment to a important ligament. This area is called suspensory ligament of the lens. Suspensory ligament of the lens. Suspensory ligament of the lens. It is attached to the body of the choroid, and here, if there is a constriction of this one, it produces a relaxation of the suspensory ligament of the lens, and it increases the convexity of the lens. Suppose if there is a relaxation of this one, it produces stretching of this suspensory ligament, because it is attached to the capsule of the lens, and it flattens the lens, reduces the convexity of the lens. Okay, that is why the suspensory ligament of the lens, it is attached to this ciliary body. the ciliary body is playing most important role in altering the shape of the lens, and in that way it is also called muscle of accommodation. Muscle of accommodation. The ciliary muscle, the ciliary muscle is called muscle of accommodation. It is having three types of fibers, that is the radial fibers, circular fibers, and meridional fibers. Okay. Next, the structure of this ciliary body, that is it is having stroma, ciliaris muscle, and bilaminar epithelium. There are three structures that are present in the ciliary body. You see here, this is the outside this epithelium, and here this is the inner epithelium. Inner epithelium. It is nothing but the continuation of the non-nervous part of the retina. Non-nervous part of the retina, and in the middle this is the stroma. And at the same time, in the body of the ciliary body, that is at the base of the ciliary body, there is a arterial flexus. Arterial flexus. This arterial flexus, it is very, very important because this is the area for the production of aqueous humor. Aqueous humor. Aqueous humor is produced in the, here you see, this is the ciliary body. At this level, there are arterial flexes. They filter by the process of active or passive, by the process of diffusion or by the active process. There is a production of the aqueous humor into the anterior segment of the, especially the posterior chamber of the this anterior segment of the eye. Okay, this is the site for the production of aqueous humor. That is the ciliary body, the plexus, the arterial plexus, the capillary plexus, which is present in the ciliary body. It produces aqueous humor. Okay, after that, the aqueous humor, it goes, and you see later what happens. Okay, that is the another important function of the this ciliary body, and because two important functions. One is the it provides attachment to the, that is suspensory ligament of the lens, and it will contracting this, it causes relaxation of the this suspensory ligament, and it produces increase in the convexity of the lens. And if there is a relaxation of the ciliary muscle, it produces stress tension of the suspensory ligament, and it flattens the, depending upon the vision, near vision or distant vision, depending upon the need, there is a accommodation. Because of this reason, this is the muscle of accommodation. That is the ciliary muscle is the muscle of accommodation. Okay, that is the importance. Next, coming to the another structure, that is iris. Iris diaphragm. Okay, iris diaphragm. It is vertically arranged in between the anterior and posterior segments of the eye. Okay, anterior part of the irial tract. This is the anterior most part, and circular curtain which divides the and opens in the central part, that is called, in the center there is a opening, that is called pupil. You see here, this is the iris diaphragm, and the center it is open. This part is called pupil. This part is called pupil. Okay, and sphincter pupillae and dilator pupillae, there are two muscles. Here, in the iris diaphragm, it is within the iris diaphragm, there are two important muscles. One is sphincter pupillae and another one is the dilator pupillae. These sphincter pupillae and dilator pupillae, they are very, very important muscles depending upon the intensity of the light. Suppose if you take the dark in the dark area, if you go into the dark area, there is a action of the dilator pupillae and pupil dilates. If you see the bright light, to protect the eye, there is a action of the sphincter pupillae, and it reduces the size of the pupil. That is these are the two muscles, very, very important muscles. They are maintaining the size of the pupil by contracting and relaxing this iris diaphragm. Iris is placed vertically between the cornea and lens. Here, in between the cornea and lens, you see here, this is the lens and this is the cornea. In between the cornea and lens, this space, this anterior segment, it is divided into two parts with the help of the iris diaphragm. With the help of the diaphragm, that is anterior segment, anterior chamber and posterior chamber. Anterior chamber and posterior chamber. And next, chambers of contain, that is these chambers, they contain the aqueous humor. its peripheral margin is attached to the mid part of the anterior surface of the body of the ciliary. That is ciliary body. Ciliary body. It is attached to periphery. It is attached to the ciliary body. See, this is the ciliary body, and this is the attachment of the iris diaphragm with the ciliary body. Next, central free margin forms the boundary of the pupil. Okay, this pupil, it is very, very important, because suppose if you see, then normally this pupil size is small. But if you see, if you want to examine the inner structures, or if you want to see the retina, if you have to dilate the pupil. But here, these two muscles, that is sphincter and dilator pupillae. The sphincter pupillae and dilator pupillae, these are the two important muscles. They are regulated by the nerves. That is, suppose if you take the sphincter pupillae, it is nerve supply, it is receiving from the parasympathetic nerve supply, that is from the oculomotor nerve. And here, the dilator pupillae, it is also muscle, it is receiving its nerve supply from the sympathetic nerve supply. And here, in this way, these two are the most important muscles that are regulating the size of the pupil. If you want to examine the eye, that is the retina, you have to put one drop of atropine. This atropine acts like a neuromuscular junction blocker, and here it blocks the, that is acetylcholine, that is neurotransmitter. It blocks the acetylcholine, then it produces the pupillary dilatation. Okay, and at the same time, the iridocorneal angle separates the cornea. Okay, here the cornea lens. See, this is the cornea and this is the lens. Okay, the periphery of the cornea is attached to the periphery of the cornea, and this area is called iridocorneal angle. Clinically, this iridocorneal angle is very, very important, because already I told you, and here this is the site for the production of the aqueous humor, and this is the site for the absorption of the aqueous humor. If there is a disturbance in the balance, that is a more production or less absorption, it leads to more accumulation in the anterior segment of the eye, and it leads to a clinical condition that is called glaucoma. The glaucoma, it is nothing but the increased intraocular pressure. There is increase in the intraocular pressure. That is due to defective drainage at the iridocorneal angle. This is very, very, very important area, because this is the site for the, that is sinus venosus sclerae. And into this sinus venosus sclerae, the venae varicose, they drain. You see, this is the iridocorneal angle. This is the trabecular tissue, and the venae varicose here, and these venae varicose, small varicose, they drain into the sinus venosus sclerae. In this way, the aqueous humor is drained. Here, this is the site for the production of the aqueous humor, that is in the posterior segment of the posterior chamber of the anterior segment, and this is the anterior segment of the anterior chamber of the anterior segment. This is the site for the absorption. This is the site for production. This is the site for absorption. And here, through this, the posterior surface of the lens. The posterior surface of the lens, it is in the posterior surface of the iris diaphragm, it is in contact with the anterior surface of the lens, and here it allows the flow of aqueous humor in one direction. It acts like a valve. From posterior chamber to the anterior chamber only it allows, not in the reverse direction. And this is the site for the production of the aqueous humor. This is the site for the absorption of the aqueous humor. Okay, if there is any disturbance in this production and absorption, it leads to a clinical condition that is called glaucoma. This is the most common clinical condition. It is due to increased intraocular pressure. We see in detail what is the intraocular pressure, all these things. Okay, next, another important clinical condition if there is a congenital defect in the formation of the iris diaphragm. Iris diaphragm may not be fully formed if there is a cleft or slit or a fissure in this iris diaphragm. We call it as coloboma. Coloboma. This is called coloboma. That is due to defective formation of iris diaphragm. Defective formation of iris diaphragm. And this iris diaphragm, it is also having different colors depending upon the individual pigments that are present in the iris diaphragm. And in albinos, it is red in color because of blood vessels. And there are different you can see in the movies, heroines there and heroes, they are wearing some different colors of contact lens. There is a different shades of iris. Okay. Next, coming to the another important structure, that is retina. This is the real site of vision. That is a thin, delicate inner layer. It is continuous posteriorly with the optic nerve. Okay, that is the starting point of the optic nerve. Outer surface is attached with the choroid and inner contact with the hyaloid membrane. Here, in between the retina and the vitreous body, between the retina and the vitreous body, there is a one partition that is called hyaloid membrane. Hyaloid membrane. Okay, see here. This is the sclera, this is the choroid, and this is the retina. This yellow one is the retina. And this is the vitreous body. In between the vitreous body and the retina, and this is the here, this vitreous body, it is outside, is covered by a membrane. This is called hyaloid membrane. Hyaloid membrane. Here, the retina. What are the different parts of the retina? We see. What are the different parts of the retina? That is optic disc. Optic disc. This is the site for the entry and exit of the optic nerve, and optic part and ciliary and iridal parts. That is nervous parts and non. Here you see the histology of the retina. There are 10 layers. Outer 3 or 4 layers are called non-nervous area, and inner part is the nervous part. Here the outer part, it is nourished by the choroid, the blood vessels which are supplying the choroid. They are also supplied to the outer 3 or 4 layers. The inner part of the retina, it is receiving its blood supply from there is a central artery of retina. Central artery of retina. And if you see in the posterior part of this retina, here there is a one yellow pigment area. Yellow pigment area. This is called macula densa. Macula lutea. This is called macula lutea because it is yellow in pigment. Yellow in pigment. In this area, there are only cones are present. They are concerned with the discriminative vision. Discriminative vision. Okay. Next, at the exit point of the optic nerve. Exit point of the optic nerve. This is the optic disc. And here at this area, there is a depression area that is called fovea centralis. Fovea centralis. And fovea centralis. Fovea centralis. Here also, this is the center for the discriminative vision. Okay, what are the clinical conditions which are related with the retina? That is retinal detachment. Retinal detachment. That is there is a detachment of the retina from the choroid. That is due to leaking of blood in between these 2 layers. In between these 2 layers, this is the most dangerous clinical condition. It leads to blindness. It leads to partial blindness. And next, another condition, this is a papilledema. Papilloedema, and this is due to increased intracranial pressure. Intracranial pressure. It leads to protrusion of this optic disc into the eyeball. And that is called papilloedema. And another important condition, that is diabetic retinopathy. Diabetic retinopathy, the blood vessels which are supplying to the retina, there is a chances for the rupture of the small blood vessels. They may produce hemorrhage, or sometimes they may be deposition of fats also, but is possible. That is called diabetic retina. These are all the different layers of the retina. Next, coming to the refractive media of the eye. Refractive media or refractive apparatus of the eye. Refractive apparatus, it contains the cornea, aqueous humor, lens, and vitreous body. And about 2/3 of the refraction of light takes place by the surface of the, in front of the surface of the cornea, that is air and corneal junction or a corneal epithelium. Aqueous humor. Already I told you, aqueous humor, it is a clear fluid. It fills the anterior segment of the eyeball and it is secreted by the posterior chamber of the capillaries that are present in the ciliary process, and it passes into the anterior chamber through the pupil. And from the anterior chamber, it is drained by the anterior ciliary veins through the iridocorneal angle. That is why this iridocorneal angle is very, very important. Aqueous humor, it is rich in ascorbic acid, glucose and amino acids, and it is nourishes the avascular tissues of the cornea and lens. This here, the maintenance of the intraocular pressure is very, very important. That is about 15 to 20 mm of Hg. 15 to 20 mm of Hg. You can measure the intraocular pressure with the help of the tonometry. If there is an increase in the intraocular pressure, that is due to defective absorption of the aqueous humor or overproduction of the aqueous humor. It leads to increased intraocular pressure. That is nothing but the glaucoma. Okay, here you see, this is the site of production of the aqueous humor, and this is the site for the absorption of the aqueous humor. This is the iridocorneal angle, and this is the body of the ciliary body, and this is the capillaries. They are producing this aqueous humor. Next, you see here, this is the, if there is an increase in the intraocular pressure, it produces compression over this vitreous body, and it also compresses over the optic disc. The optic disc is produced and protruded, and it may cause damage to the optic nerve. That is why this if there is an enormous increase in the intraocular pressure, it produces blindness. Next, lens is a transparent bioconvex flexible body placed in between the anterior and posterior segments. It is circular in outline, diameter is 1 centimeter. It contributes about 15 diopters of the total 58 dioptric power of the eye. Posterior surface is convex, more convex than the anterior surface, and suspensory ligaments, it retains the lens in position. The ligament is made up of series of fibers, that is ciliary process and lower serratum. Next, this is the lens. Okay, here this is the suspensory ligament. The posterior surface is more convex than the anterior surface, and this is the lens. Okay, it keeps the suspensory ligament. It keeps the lens in position. If there is a hardening or there is a change in the color of the lens, we call it as cataract. It is the age related, and most of the occasions we go for the, it produces visual disturbances, and most of the occasions we go for the, that is a replacement, that is of the lens. The next is the last one, that is a vitreous body. It is a colorless jelly-like transparent mass, fills the posterior segment of the eyeball that contains 99% of water and salts and mucopolysaccharides and hyaluronic acid. It is enclosed in delicate hyaloid membrane. That is the membrane covers the vitreous body, and the hyaloid canal, that is in the center part of the, here this is the vitreous body, and this is the hyaloid membrane, and this is the hyaloid canal. This is nothing but the remnant of the central artery of retina. Remnant part of the central artery of the retina, and here this area called hyaloid fossa. Hyaloid fossa, and it provides accommodation to the posterior surface of the lens. Posterior surface of the lens. Okay, these are all the different parts, and here sometimes you may find some flying small sparkles over the in front of the eye. That is due to, that they are called musculae volentes. This is called volentes. This is due to, most of the occasions this is due to there is presence of the RBC in the vitreous body. Okay, these are all the different clinical conditions. And applied anatomy, already we discussed. This is corneal grafting, injury of the cornea, glaucoma, and the central artery of, sometimes there will be occlusion of this central artery of retina. It leads to blockage of the blood supply to the retina, and it leads to loss of vision or blindness. And conjunctivitis, already we discussed. And retinal detachment, that is also discussed. And ophthalmoscope, it is a instrument, it is used for the to examine the that is retina, status of the retina. And lens becomes opaque that the age advances and it leads to visual disturbances. Okay, this is the pupillary dilatation with the help of the atropine, and this is the site for the entry and exit of the structures which are entering into the eyeball. Okay, these are all the different structures which are making the eyeball. Okay, go through this. If you need doubt, we discuss whenever you meet. Okay, thank you.